Right then, having done that, we're going to go back in time a bit to one of Roger Deakins' earliest films, and proof that a great cinematographer isn't just there to make things look beautiful, it's there to provide the necessary setting. And that necessary may be grim.
Yes.
Grim in 10-foot high capital letters. Grim.
Yes.
With 1984.
Yes. Continuing the theme of films titled with years, in which we must beware the savage roar of George Orwell's 1984. This represents one of those fleetingly rare cases where I've actually read the source material, although I suspect even if you haven't, you're probably still going to be fairly familiar with the general gist of it. What with that whole George Orwell being so prescient about aspects of human nature and technology that his surname became an adjective thing. Let's see if Michael Radford's film can step out of the shadow cast by the source material. The political map projection of 1984's world is rather less colourful than ours, with a series of ongoing conflicts leaving only 3 supernations locked into a permanent war. In a bombed-out part of what was London, now simply a sector of Airstrip 1, the eastern edge of Oceania, which is predominantly the Americas, John Hurt's Winston Smith goes about a necessarily austere life as a mid-level party apparatchik, a tool of the totalitarian rulers, altering historical records to fit with approved party lines and removing, or unpersoning, anyone no longer deemed suitable. Now, as with the book, there is a narrative, largely driven by Wilson's illicit relationship with a fellow party member, Susanna Hamilton's Julia, where they commit the heinous crimes of love and free thought from a base in the less tightly controlled proletariat areas, who are somewhat vaguely characterised as a mass of completely uninformed people kept entirely entertained by trivialities, presumably like some sort of post-apocalyptic reality TV show or something. Eventually, this relationship is uncovered by the Thought Police, and they are taken away for a spot of light re-education / mind-breaking torture at the behest of party higher-up Richard Burton's O'Brien. It is, however, a narrative that raises far more questions than it answers, and I'm not often one to harp on about plot holes, but not much about the Julia and O'Brien's instigating actions make a great deal of sense, aside from them being useful to drive the plot along. It's a love based on narrative imperative, perhaps, but I suppose the point is not so critical, given that the impossibility of expecting normal human reactions from the sort of deeply inhuman system the characters find themselves in is sort of the overarching point of the work. Now, there's a slew of dystopian tropes that were either born from or greatly popularised by 1984. Pervasive, intrusive surveillance, controlling the past to control the present, how controlling language can control expression, doublethink, thought crimes, 2-minute hate, and while I'd argue it's the concepts and the language that's the reason the novel has endured, Deakins made a pretty good fist of the imagery of it too. I mean, when what's widely regarded as one of the best adverts ever made is directly inspired by this, it surely has some place in the wider culture. The ominous form of the ever-watching Big Brother, the contrast between the ruins of Airstrip 1 and the seemingly miraculously surviving green land that becomes a symbol of hope and freedom for Winston are standouts, alongside the general Fallout-ish post-apocalyptia. However, at heart, 1984 is more about the words than the visuals, and any film translation will struggle to capture that focus. I think Michael Radford and crew have done as well as can be expected on that front. The performances from Hurt, Hamilton and Burton are, well, weird. They're not behaving and acting as normal human beings, which can come across as stilted, but the point is that the society isn't letting them be normal human beings. Likewise, when O'Brien's torturing Winston with all the checked-out air of a distracted bureaucrat, well, again, it's all intentional, I assume, but it does feel, well, weird. So then, I suppose 1984 gets a mild recommendation, either for the interested or for those that don't want to read the book, but it's not essential viewing, and, well, the book knocks this into a cocked hat. If nothing else, it's good to see Rab C. Nesbitt on the big screen.
That was one of my first points I was going to make, Scott. I saw the titles come like, Gregor Fisher?
Yes.
Really? That was weird casting. Yeah, I did not get on with this film, unfortunately. I haven't read the book. I suppose I'm not alone in this world of having bought it and then never actually got around to reading it. Though, more just because I've had so many other books to read, I just haven't gotten around to this one yet. And from cultural osmosis, I feel I've taken into the gist of it, which is why I could actually follow this film. Because I think if I hadn't done, I would have been absolutely at sea, because stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And it's like it kind of jumps along. It's like, almost like dream logic. And it's like, okay, he's in this relationship with her now. Why? Why not? Okay.
Because she dropped a note that said she loved him. Like, oh, yes. Is it that easy?
After he said, I hate her.
Yes.
okay. And then, the relationship just sort of happens.
And then he's pretty much randomly framed for reading a book by the person that catches him reading the book because he gave it to them. So why is that? What's the point of that? There's lots, as I say, there's lots of questions that it doesn't quite answer. It's really aiming more for the overall world, think of it, rather than the actual story itself.
And as much as maybe if I read the book, I'd feel this a bit more, but I didn't quite get from this film anyway quite how the whole unperson rewriting of history worked. I mean, the film begins with that thing about whoever controls the present controls the past, etc. But they're kind of redoing newspapers and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but how does anybody ever find that stuff out? How does that affect the present when like most of this stuff is inconsequential stuff nobody's ever going to look at? Like, it's not. I didn't quite understand the point of like.
Yeah,
a small article in an old newspaper is going to make any difference. Yeah,
a lot of it seems to go about trying to explain how you would control people's reactions to news, such as, I mean, it's a relatively trivial point that they bring up in it, but when they're talking about the changing the chocolate reaction, the level of chocolate rations that's going to be there, so rather than being, I can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but rather than being increased to a certain level, it's like being increased to what might actually have been a reduction, but because you can go back and change the records previously to know that it's that it was at a lower level, even though it wasn't, it can seem like, you know, these kind of things.
Yeah.
And if you've managed to train society enough that when they go back and read that, they go, well, that must obviously be true because it is written there, and that's how the party wants me to think, even though I may know that it's not because of the whole doublethink thing. Then you can kind of do it. But it's one of these things that's. Yeah, it is better explained in the book than the film, but I suppose it would need to be because books use more words, what with them being books, and it's easier to do that kind of thing than in a visual medium.
Yeah, I really, that's one of the bits that really kind of, I didn't understand how that was supposed to work, because you see Winston, he sees this thing, it says something like chocolate ration to be reduced to 35 grams. And then he changed it, it's like increased to 25.
Yeah.
And then you see Gregor Fisher says to him the next morning, have you heard the rumour they're increasing the chocolate ration? I'm like,
yeah.
Well, but how is this a rumour? Like, again, it's happened in the past. Nobody's going to have looked it up.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. It's not how people talk. And again, like you're saying, Scott, but like, they're not really allowed to act like normal people. But it doesn't. But like, there are bits that are stronger later, like basically because his character, Parsons, Greg Fisher's character, is so bought into the system where they tell him he's a thought criminal without him knowing it, he believes it.
Yeah.
But that thing with the chocolate doesn't make any sense because that would still be in the... Oh, no. Anyway, right. No, what bothered me more is that the world doesn't really make a great deal of sense. Not in terms of the fascist dictatorship and stuff, but more in the fact that there's not just one, but two clearly very high-ranking people trying to entrap Winston Smith, this absolute nobody, for reasons.
Yes.
Because there's you've got Richard Burton, who's clearly a really high-ranking member.
Yeah.
Right? Who seems to be taking a personal interest in Winston Smith, who's clearly an absolute nobody.
Yeah.
And also Cyril Cusack, who's apparently been working undercover for like a year, maybe more.
Yeah.
To entrap him. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would you can't spend this much resource on one person? It doesn't make any sense, and so that kind of stopped me getting the film right from the beginning. It does, however, look incredibly grim, so it's got that going for it. It's not one I'd recommend though, because you need to know something about the book to understand what's going on. But I think if you really want to do it, you're probably just better off reading the book, which this is kind of pushed me to actually finally get around to doing.
Yeah.
But I think the film just doesn't work on its own without some knowledge of the book, and it's not really what films are supposed to do.
I don't mind 1984, but I can't recommend it very highly to anyone, certainly to anyone that's not read the book. It's exactly the same bucket as Dune falls into for me, where I like that they've made a film out of it, but it's a film that is completely impenetrable if you've not read the source material. And 1984 is maybe not quite so bad in that regard, but yeah, it does need to lean on a lot of things that you're carrying over from your knowledge of the book, rather than something that it can explain itself within its own world. I can't think how you would be able to do it better than they've done here. I just think it's not one of these, nothing's unfilmable, but some things just don't lend themselves so well to an adaptation. So this can deal with the kind of high-level aspects of it and the visuals of it, but it can't explain so well the rationale of it. But because the book is so concerned with the use of language and how language shapes thought, it's harder to turn that into dialogue that has the same impact. And I think they've done the best they can, but I just it needs too much assumed knowledge from the book to really be enjoyable. So that's the first port of call. Read the book, and unfortunately, if you have read the book, there's probably not a great deal of point watching the film apart from the general interest.
Yeah, that's the impression I get too. And like I said, I can grok quite a lot of it simply because of the cultural osmosis of 1984's effect on popular culture.
Yeah.
And so much of the language has come into, the language.
Yeah.
Must have been a better way to put that. The reason I'm not a writer like Orwell was. It's the world, certainly separate from the book, the world just doesn't work. And the things that happened, they could have happened without any obvious imperative, either in terms of emotion or narrative drive. There's narrative necessity.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the only thing that's really compelling anything to happen.
Yeah.
It's, again, though, because we're focusing on Roger Deakins in this episode, it does look horrible.
Yes, it's dreadful.
Really, really, really unpleasant looking in this world, which is exactly what it's meant to be.
Yeah.
There is a strange coda to the film that it mentions, like, this film was shot in and around London in 1984. The exact time and setting envisioned by the author. I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't look even vaguely recognisable as London.
Yeah.
And London doesn't look like that. That doesn't matter. That was an irrelevant thing to put in there.
Yes. Yeah. It's not a statement that stands a lot of scrutiny, does it? This is set in the one part of London where they knocked over a building that we could film around, which looks like what Orwell had written. It's not actually what London looks like in 1984. So, yeah.
Yes, it's not representative at all, so it's meaningless.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess that Michael Radford thought there was some sort of import in that. And no,
that's just coincidence. That's
yes.